What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wing and Tail Boys podcast, your Northeast hunting and fishing destination. I'm Chris.
And I'm Angelo.
And we're your hosts. Join us as we navigate the woods and waters of the Northeast, sharing our passion for the outdoors.
Whether it's land management, outdoor recreation, hunting, or fishing, we're going to cover it all. With 40 plus years of experience in the Northeast, we'll provide insights, tips, and stories to help you make the most of your adventures and help you experience the wild.
So, tune in, grab your gear, and let's hit the woods together. And always remember, success is just a commitment away. Sounds of the podcast. What is going on, guys? Thanks for joining us here for another episode of the Wing and Tail Boys. As we record today, it is January 23rd. We are pretty much at the end of deer season, just about everywhere except down south, if I'm not mistaken. So, like we said in our last episode, it's time to start talking about some stuff that don't really involve deer. And today we're going to dabble in something that Angelo has a little bit of experience in. I have literally zero experience in. And we're going to be talking with Kevin Creeley today about turkey hunting for the beginner. Someone who's never done it before. I want to get into it. Where do I get started? Like I said, we're joined here by Kevin Creeley. How you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm freaking pumped to not be talking about deer hunting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm deer hunted out, and I on my podcast have not started putting turkey content out yet. But since I started the show, which I've been at it, I guess for about 6 months now or so, about the same as you guys. That's been like the thing I've been looking forward to more than anything is turkey content, and I haven't had the pleasure of producing any turkey content yet because it's just not timely, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been like trying to control my want, I guess, to produce turkey content because I don't want to start too early because I don't want, like, if my listeners are still juiced up on deer hunting, I don't want to start talking about turkey hunting. But when you texted and asked if I'd come on and talk about turkey hunting, I was like, done, please. Yes. You know?
He said, yes, absolutely. Let's do that.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because it's almost like, you know, like you said, you're dying to not be talking about deer hunting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it might not be timely, but it's refreshing to have something different be out there besides deer stuff. So even though they might be still out there in the deer woods, still figuring some stuff out, it's nice to throw in a curveball here. And, you know, happy to have you come on and talk while you're all excited and stuff, because it won't be too long that we'll be sick and tired of talking about turkey hunting and we'll be talking about something else.
Never happens.
You know what I mean? So it goes quick. It goes quick. Yeah. These days go by fast. So
I hear you, man. For sure.
So one of the things that I think is really cool about podcasting, which is different from, you know, listening to a news station or watching something on TV, is it seems like when you watch the Outdoor Channel, everything seems to be date specific. So if it's deer season, there's deer hunting on the Outdoor Show. If it's turkey season, there's turkey hunting. If it's fishing season, it's fishing. The beautiful thing about podcasting is people can bookmark stuff, save episodes, download stuff, you know? So if you're listening to this and you're not quite in turkey mode yet, just bookmark the episode, download it, save it, whatever you got to do, and just know that it's there when it's time for you to start getting ready for turkey season.
One of the things man up and listen.
Or just man up and listen. Exactly. So one of the things I wish I would have done is, like, I feel like sometimes I get into, whether it's turkey mode, deer mode, fishing mode, whatever, a little too late, where I start to look for the content way, way too late. Like, I should be implementing what's in those podcasts by the time I'm listening to them, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it seems like a decent segue for the, you know, the time it is. Like I said, it's January 23rd. I'm seeing a shit ton of turkey walking around in groups now. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, if I'm driving around this time of year, if I'm driving around and I'm seeing pockets of or groups of turkey walking together, is that something worth taking note of now? Like putting a mark on Onyx or a GPS pin or something? Is it worth paying attention to where they are at this time of year?
Well, mostly it's just it's good to know that there is turkeys in the area. You know, there's turkeys on that property. It doesn't necessarily mean that you show up, you see 70 hens in a field, and you show up spring morning to hunt those turkeys, and the same 70 turkeys are going to be there. Kind of similar to how deer and bachelor groups in the summertime, all throughout the rest of the year, with the exception of the springtime, turkeys will flock up like that, especially this time of year when it's real cold. and they'll flock up together like that and get in big social groups. But that will break up. So, is it really something to note? Like, oh, I saw turkeys in that field? Maybe not, because there could just be like some type of food source that they favor in that field right now that's not going to be there in April, But it's just good to know that there's turkeys on the property. That's a huge thing right there. I mean, that's actually like I said, I wrote some notes down for this podcast, and step one is have a place to hunt turkeys that has turkeys.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah, and that goes hand in hand with what we talked about the other day, where it's like, if you want to shoot 150-inch deer, there's got to be a 150-inch deer there to hunt.
That's
right.
You
know what I mean? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We should always be looking for areas where we can hunt, right? So no matter what it is, whether we're shed hunting right now, whether we're snow tracking deer right now, you're still going to see turkey prints in the snow. You're still going to see whatever other animal you're trying to track and get an inventory on. If you have a certain amount of woods, a lot of people are just hunting tracts of public land. You should always be looking to inventory. You should always be looking to gain knowledge whenever you can. So even though it's not turkey season, if I go through and I'm seeing a bunch of turkey scratching, if I'm seeing some turkey tracks, if I'm seeing flocks of turkey in areas that are just outside of where I can hunt, they're probably going to be spending time on the property that I'm hunting. Can I start to figure out where they're accessing, where they're coming from? Are there certain roosting patterns that they have where, once the spring comes around, they start to move over to a certain patch of woods, or are they only roosting in some evergreens right now since they're the only things with cover? Those are all things that I like to take inventory of.
Okay, I got you. Now, Kev, are there any, because obviously we're going to talk a lot about the things that we want to do as beginners in the turkey woods. But before we do that, what are some common mistakes that guys start to make in their early years of turkey hunting? Maybe we can fast track that for our listeners. Like, what are some things like absolutely avoid or to keep in mind as you're going into this?
Okay, so first, before I jump into that, I'm going to segue off of what Angelo said.
Sure.
And that's when this time of year, when you have these big flocks of turkeys and they're visible, they're out in the field, so you can see them and stuff. You can get a pretty easy idea of where these turkeys are roosting and stuff. If you have some free time this time of year, the best way to get better at running any type of turkey call, whether you run a mouth call or a pot call or a box call or a tube call or whatever it is that you favor, go sit in and amongst those turkeys around those roost sites when they're in these big flocks, because their confidence is way up when they're in these big flocks. They feel safe because they've got safety in numbers, And as a result of that, they are extremely vocal, and you can go sit and listen to them. I don't know if you've ever had a flock of turkeys come scratching underneath you in the deer woods, but they're quite vocal. They're kicking, they're purring, they're clucking, they're scratching, they're preening. They're making all kinds of noises, and that is just like, they are just writing the book for how to sound like a hen. You just stand there and sit there and listen to them with your back against a tree. Listen to them fly up, listen to them fly down. Man, it's awesome too. It's just like they'll put on a whole show this time of year if you've got the grit to just go out there and sit and hang with them in the cold,
So they'll call the same way now as they would during, say, the mating season?
So yes and no. There's some calls that are kind of more specific to the mating season during the spring. But a lot of the just social calls, like the hens talking back and forth to one another, are calls that they make all year long. And with that being said too, a lot of the calls, like for example, the Kiki run, and we can get into this stuff in more detail later, but the Kiki run call is a common call that you'll hear this time of year when they're in these big flocks. Another name for the Kiki run call is the assembly call. And it's a sound that a turkey will make when they're trying to locate the rest of the flock of turkeys. If that flock gets dispersed, then they'll do like a woo wee weep, woo wee weep, weep, and they'll do that. And you can use that call in the spring to locate a gobbler 125%. I've done it several times. So you can take calls that they only make in the fall, and you can go make those sounds in the spring and locate a gobbler with it, because that gobbler's not thinking like, well, that doesn't sound like a spring call. They're just like, oh, a hen. You know what I mean? That's just it. That's like the extent of their thought process,
So they're
chasing Volvos down the road. I think they'll chase a fall hen call.
Yeah.
Have you seen those videos? The guy will just be standing like, come here, turkey, come here. Yeah. Next thing you know, it's like three freaking, the three of them coming up to him, like gobbling all over the place. And some of them are pissed off. Some of them are excited. Like, that shit's just.
Yeah, those city turkeys are something else, man.
Yeah, city turkeys. Everything.
Anyway, back to your back to your point. You said mistakes.
Yes.
Like early on mistakes. So probably two big ones. Number one is like, let's say you have 150 acres and it's slam loaded with turkeys. Turkeys are very intolerant to hunting pressure. When you start pressuring a turkey, they are going to shut down. They're not going to necessarily leave the property entirely, but they're just going to become extremely difficult to hunt. Real similar to a mature buck. You know, you get busted once by a big buck, get busted twice, you might as well throw your hat. You know what I mean? It's a wrap. Like,
yeah.
Very similar with longbeards. They are not tolerant to hunting pressure whatsoever. So if you go out there, like one common mistake that people make in the preseason, for example, they want to go listening for turkeys, and that's great. I do the same thing. But they go out there and they call at the turkey. And I don't know why people do that, but that's something that a lot of folks do. They'll go, they hear a turkey gobbling, and then they're like, well, I've been practicing my calls. I want to try it out, you know. Pop the mouth call in and start yap, 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 yap. And he's just pow, pow, just eating it up. And in your head, you're like, oh, I'm gonna freaking smoke him opening day. When in reality, you're just educating that turkey. He doesn't like to just stand there and be called at. And then he's gonna probably end up where you were calling from once you leave and be like, well, I showed up and she wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a number one. Calling to turkeys out of season. I don't recommend doing that, especially on a property that you have access to hunt. You know, I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Another more situational type, and we're going to get into this more in depth later. I've got some notes on it once we get towards calling to turkeys. But when you're hunting a turkey, one of the most common mistakes, and I made it for several years in a row until I got with some good turkey hunting mentors that talked me out of it, is when you're conversing with the turkey. So let's say I walked up a logging road and I did a locator call. Turkey gobbled down in the creek bottom. I went and got uphill of him on a ridge side, and I started calling at him. He gobbled back at my turkey calling. Once he gobbles back at your turkey call, you're in the game. Like, he's interested, right? And then I call, he gobbles, I call, he gobbles, I call, he gobbles. Okay, the connection's been made. Maybe he's closed some distance. He was 250 yards. Now he's only 150 yards. He's coming in, and then that turkey just completely stops gobbling. Maybe for 20 minutes. You know, I used to think, well, daggum, he must have lost interest, and then I would just pack my stuff and leave to go try to find a different turkey. That's not the answer. The answer is he's probably on his way. But I always like to say that turkeys got nothing to do and they got all day to do it. They're not in a rush to come to your call. You know what I mean? So when you call to the turkey, he might be like 9 times out of 10 in my experience, when they stop answering you is when they're on the way. And what you want to do so bad is call to him again. Let me just check and see if he's there. And then you'll yap, yap, and he goes pow, and he's 80 yards. Well, you may have just hung him up for another 30 minutes. Because now in his head, he's like, oh, she's still over there. She's vocal. She's still in the same spot. I'll just stand over here and strut. She'll come over here. Because she can hear me drumming from 200 yards away, because they've got insane ears, you know? So they'll just stand there and drum. I don't know if you've ever heard a turkey drum. It's about one of the coolest sounds in the world. Angelo?
Not in person.
Yeah. They have like that low tone to it. You can, they can hear it, but
yeah, we can hear it, but we have to be real close to the turkey. And some people have a better ear for it than others. Like, some can hear it really, really well from like 100 plus yards. Me personally, I can't really hear it too good till the turkey's basically in my lap. Usually by the time I hear a turkey drumming, I've got my red dot on their head. But
okay, nice.
But those hens can hear that drumming from a long ways away. So you might not think that you and the turkey are conversing, but he might be standing 200 yards over there just drumming and drumming and drumming and drumming for 20 minutes straight. And he's wondering why you're not responding. And then you get up and leave. And then he's going to end up right there where you were. And you're at the truck riding around looking for another turkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty common mistake.
I had listened to, I want to say it's a Southern Outdoorsman. I listen to them all the time. I really do.
Yeah, they're a great
and they
podcast,
were doing, they really do. And especially down by you, I'm sure it's a lot of what they do applies a little bit more to you with the same type of terrain, kind of somewhat similar weather and all that stuff. But
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Anyway, they were talking on an episode. They had someone talking about calling turkeys at one point. And one of the things the guy said was his father told him, the second you hear a turkey call back, you shut up. And you just sit there and you wait. And he was basically saying the same thing you were saying. They know where you are. They know where that sound came from. And if they're going to come, they're going to come. There's no reason to sit there and let them know.
They can pinpoint a sound to like a stick on the ground. Like, it's insane when you call. Because I've called from a location and had a turkey answer, and then I crawled over and shifted locations to get a better view or shooting lanes or whatever. And it's incredible how they will come to that spot that you called from. And they're standing there like, well, where's she at? I heard a call from right here an hour and 45 minutes ago. I know it was right here at GPS 6927. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
That's also, I experienced, the only time I've ever experienced anything like that was this year. And I think we talked about it recently about the day I had calling in the woods. And every single deer I called literally came within 10 yards of my tree and just stood there looking around like, what happened? But what was so interesting to me was that where I was pretty much at the tip of a finger, and all the deer were coming up either from behind me from the thicket or up from the bottom into the finger. And I couldn't believe how incredibly accurate they were at coming straight to where that call was.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, man. It always amazes me because you'll see, like, I mean, well, you haven't had the experience, but maybe Angelo has. You'll go out with a group of guys, and let's say it's one of the guys owl hoots to try to locate a turkey. And like I said, we're going to get into that stuff. One of the guys rips a locator call and a turkey gobbles, and you've got 3 guys standing on a ridgetop together. All 3 of those guys might point in a different direction of where they think the turkey sound came from. That's really common. Happens to me and my wife all the time. We'll stand like 15 to 20 feet apart facing opposite directions so that we can get different vantages while I call. I'll call and a turkey will gobble and she'll point east and I'll point west because it's just the way the sound travels, whether it travels off of a bank or it hits water or there's trees or whatever. And then at that point, you just got to take a gamble. Like, well, one of us is right, so we'll go. You know,
or you could both be wrong. You know.
Yeah, that could happen too. But turkeys, they don't get it wrong. It seems like they know where the heck that crap's coming from. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to do a lot with what you said. Like, they're just so familiar with the terrain. They know what it sounds like if they're inside of a gully or inside of a blowdown, and as opposed to being up on top of a ridgetop or on the edge of a finger. I mean, you talked about communicating with your wife. I mean, if she's in the laundry room and you're in the kitchen and she yells to you and it's really muffled, you go, she's in the laundry room. But if she's right in the bedroom, right around the corner, and she yells out to you, you know, she's a lot closer. You've had so much interaction and you've called to each other from so many different areas in the home that okay, she's upstairs, she's downstairs, she's, down with the kids or whatever. I feel like that's a lot of what these animals do. I mean, like you said, they've got all day to do nothing. You know what I mean? So they've interacted with all different types of animals and all different types of scenarios, all different weather conditions and seasonal conditions. And they're able to, I think, obviously they have better senses than us, but I think that also plays a lot into it. It's like they're so familiar with the terrain. It's like, okay, well, I know it came from that direction. It's close and it's really clear. So they've got to be up on top of that ridge. They can't be down in the gully because I wouldn't have heard it as clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Chris, Angelo, you want me to like break into this? Like I said, I've kind of got some notes laid out. You want me?
Wherever you wanted to start. I mean, if we really wanted to start from the beginning, I mean, we could talk guns, but I mean, I think everyone knows, you're going turkey hunting with a 12 gauge or a 20 gauge.
Yeah,
and then
we could probably do.
I'll tell you a little bit of something that I've kind of, and it's very limited amount of knowledge that I have, but just tell me quickly if you agree. I would say that for me, if you're at this part of the season, right, because we're obviously talking about beginners, but we're also talking to them at a time where they might want to start kind of getting into it. I would say the first thing is really understand your pattern. Whatever pattern you're going to be shooting, make sure that you're dialed in on that, because the beginner hunter, whether they are using chokes, full chokes, no chokes, whatever, maybe they're using a hand-me-down gun that doesn't even have a choke on it. I mean, if you're going to be starting to get into it as a beginner, would you agree that maybe kind of understanding what your tool you're going to be using before you even get out there would be a good place to start?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely understand what your equipment is capable of. Same as like in deer season, okay, my rifle's dead on at 100. It's an inch high or an inch low at 150 or whatever, whatever the case may be. Really just understand how far your pattern is effective. It's all you really need to know. And with most common turkey loads, it's going to be to 40 yards. Now there's some crazy TSS rounds being produced now that you can absolutely shoot a turkey at 100 yards. I'm not really a proponent for that. I don't really agree with that. I don't know. I don't have any problem with it. If you want to go kill a turkey, kill him any way that's legal. Me personally, I like getting them in my lap. I turkey hunt mostly for fun. I deer hunt. My primary motivation when I deer hunt is meat, and my primary motivation when I turkey hunt is having a good time. And for me, having a good time is them drumming at 7 yards,
Yeah.
So I like them in my lap. But yeah, like Angelo said, man, just understand your equipment. And we could probably do a whole podcast on gear. In my notes here, I didn't really put much about gear. We can brush on it briefly towards the end if you want. But I just figured that would be probably a whole nother time consuming
Yeah.
topic.
Well, I was also thinking down the road to talk about like even if we don't want to get into like specific call types, because I feel like that would be its own episode in itself.
100%. Yeah.
So when we do that, we could talk gear in the first half and then calls in the second half type of thing.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? All right. So then you tell us, where would, if you sit down, you meet somebody in a hunting store. They you start getting into a conversation, you find out they've never hunted before, they ask for your advice. Where do they start?
Okay. So step one is have a place to hunt turkeys, right? Like you talked about in the beginning of the podcast, you're seeing turkeys on your property. That's awesome. That means you already have a place to hunt turkeys. That's step one. Whether it's public land, private land, leased ground, family ground, whatever, make sure there's turkeys on the property before you go turkey hunting, obviously. Okay.
Yeah.
That's step one. Step two is kind of like your preseason stuff. Okay. So let's say you're a first time turkey hunter. Let's say your opener is April 1, just to make it simple. March 20th or so, really you can go earlier than that, but March 20th would be plenty early, even just a week before the season. As a good preseason, not also just really fun activity, but informational activity for you to do is to just go listen to turkeys. And what you're going to want to do is first get a general idea of where turkeys want to be in and amongst your property. Now, the best time that you're going to listen to turkeys is when they're on the roost. First thing in the morning, they gobble their heads off on the roost. And they actually gobble in most states more in the preseason than they do during the active hunting season. And it's set up that way by most states' conservation programs because the breeding peak is about 1 week before the season, and then it starts to slowly drop. And then by the tail end of the season, it's almost done. And it'll carry on for another couple weeks post-season. And that gives the turkeys an opportunity to breed. Now, with that said, you can go out there that week before season when they're in their peak breeding and go listen to all these vocalizations that they're making. Primarily the gobbling is what you want to listen to. And you can locate some turkeys. Now, you're going to go locate them on roost sites that they may not be using a week later during the hunting season. In my experience, if you hear a gobbler roosted, let's say in a creek bottom, 200 yards off the road, there's a good chance he's going to be roosted still within that creek bottom if he's not pressured within the week leading up to the season, right? Some youth hunters go in there and shoot at him or something, that could change things, but otherwise, he's going to be within the same vicinity. He might be 200 yards east, 200 yards west, up or down that creek bottom, but he's probably going to be in the same area because he's there for numerous reasons. Whether there's hens there, there's food there, there's security there, whatever it is, that's why he's there. So just go listening. That's a good preseason activity. Typically, in my experience, turkeys like to roost near water. So if you can get above a creek bottom, whether it's from the road, standing on the roof of your truck, or standing in the middle of a logging road on public ground, 200 yards above a creek bottom or whatever, go get near a creek bottom and listen. If it's a creek bottom with hardwoods, even better. Turkeys love roosting in hardwood trees, specifically white oak trees. In my experience in the southeast, they love white oak trees for roosting, but they'll absolutely roost in a pine tree or any other tree that's available to them in the habitat that they have to work with, right? So just go listening, man, and don't overthink it. Just ride around. Go get out there before light, park in an area you think there's turkeys, and listen. If he gobbles and he sounds like he's 900 yards away and there's a spot you can drive around and get closer to him to listen better, do that. If you have to get out of your truck and walk through the woods at him to go listen better, I wouldn't recommend it. That goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of the episode of unnecessarily pressuring the turkey pre-season. But just go listen, man. And then the other thing that you can do is once they fly down, and you're going to hear an audible difference when the turkey's gobbling in the tree versus when the turkey's on the ground. When he's up in the tree, number one, his gobble is going to have a different type of cadence. It's going to be almost the same cadence every gobble. It's just going to be pow, pow, pow. And sometimes they'll gobble 70, 80 times in the tree before they fly down. If you're close enough, you'll 100% hear them fly down. It's loud, man. They're built like a bowling ball, and they're not really that gracious.
Yeah.
So when they fly out of the tree, it's, it's loud. So if you're within 200 yards, 150 yards, you'll probably hear them fly down. But even if you don't, you'll hear them stop gobbling on the limb. And then if they gobble on the ground, you're going to be able to tell the difference. Now, that's important information to have leading into the season. You want to know the difference of a sound of a turkey that's in the tree versus the sound of the turkey that's on the ground. So you know when to call to them, right? So when that turkey flies down, now what you can do is listen to the direction that he goes. Okay, so we've gone out, we've parked near a creek bottom, we're listening to a turkey gobble, we stand there and listen to him, we're not calling at him, we're just listening. And then he flies down and he starts walking out towards your back 40 field, right? And he's gobbling the whole way he's going there. Now we know that he flew down and went towards that field. Awesome information for opening day. Now we know go get in between back 40 field and where turkey was roosted, and that's probably a good place to start. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay. And then another thing you can do preseason, if you're in an area that permits it, like if you're in an open area, specifically agricultural land is the best place to do it. Out west, there's tons of room to do it, but I've yet to have been able to experience that. Where I hunt, there's a ton of agriculture. Turkeys love strutting in fields. During the springtime, turkeys want to be visible because they're mating, right? So they want to strut and display for their hens. With that being said, go glass for turkeys. Glassing for turkeys is an awesome preseason activity and one of my favorite ways to locate turkeys to hunt during the spring season. And it's as simple as right around with a pair of binoculars, man. Any time of the day. It does not matter. Turkeys want to strut all day if they can. And you ride around and you just find these turkeys strutting in fields. And that'll give you, A, there's a turkey on this property. B, he likes to strut right there. That's important information, and we're going to touch on that more later. And it's just an awesome way to take inventory. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 gobblers together strutting in a field with a flock of hens. So that's another thing you can do. Go listen for turkeys, go glass for turkeys.
See, that's real interesting because actually I had it on one of our original intros to our YouTube videos. I had taken, as I was driving out to the woods, gone a couple different hunts, or to go and do field work, food plotting, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always have my GoPro set up, and then just take videos and stuff. Well, there's one day I'm driving down the road, and there's literally, I think I might have even sent it to you at some point. There was a flock of like 14 turkeys. There were like 5 gobblers, and 3 of them were sitting there strutting in the middle of the woods. Because where we are, it's literally all woods, and the only fields per se are, if someone has a food plot, which there aren't that many around us, or people's lawns. And I've seen the same flock of turkey in the same backyard right across the street from our property so many times. And I had that on video. So that was pretty cool to see. But if I'm going to go preseason, I'm going to try to find a place to listen for turkey. Let's say my situation, I just moved out here, but I haven't seen turkey driving around. So it's really like I don't even know where to start. Obviously, there's a bunch of different combinations, but if you were to say your ideal terrain on a map, if someone were to look at Onyx or whatever, a topo map, and say, okay, I need to pinpoint where to start scouting for turkey. What are some things on the map that people should look for? I know you said water, but what other compounding features could go with that to maybe increase your odds of locating turkey?
So water's number one. If I go to the water, when in doubt, go to the water. That's where turkeys are going to roost 9 times out of 10. If you've got one creek that runs through your property and there's turkeys using that property during the spring and you want to find them, get near that water, anywhere near that water. Otherwise, turkeys need ultimately every type of habitat. They're pretty picky. Not like a deer. Deer, pretty opportunistic. They can live in New York City if they needed to. You know what I mean? Where a wild turkey is a lot pickier. They need a plethora of different types of habitat to survive. So they need hard mass to eat. They need open areas to strut. They need water. They need trees to roost in. They need areas to escape for security. They need tons of stuff. So I would just say identify like I don't know. It's hard to put a size on it, but just identify an area on your property that has the most diverse habitat. It has water. It's near a field or some kind of open area. Even if it's just a big hardwood ridge, that could be treated as like a strut zone or an open area. And there's lots of hardwood mass so they can scratch and eat at the acorns and stuff like that. Just the most diverse habitat that you can find. And again, just can't say enough, get near the water.
I gotcha. And is there any if we wanted to make a radius, let's say, of how far away from the water, like how far away from the water is too far? Is there a number?
For you to position yourself to listen? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I guess I could listen from 200 yards away. I guess that's more of like a location for hunting, I guess. would be more likely for that question.
Man, so I run and gun turkey hunt. That's how I'm moving all day. I'll cover 5-6 miles a day. So where I start is sometimes pretty daggum far from where I finish that day. You know what I mean?
I got
So
you.
it really doesn't matter in the sense of locating turkeys. You just want to get near the habitat that you think's most advantageous, which is just going to be A, getting near the water, and then B, finding the most diverse habitat that's near that water. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I got you. It's a good place to start. And you got anything? If you're anything like me, you love to customize your bow while always making sure everything is just spot on. That's why I trust Anthony and Chris over at Big D Custom Pro Shop. They're located on Route 15 in Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey, and they have everything you need to tune your bow. And I promise you're going to leave there with a smile on your face. So, if you live in northern New Jersey, give my boy Big D a shout for all your archery needs. Also in northern New Jersey, Andover Hunt and Fish is your destination for all your outdoor and shooting needs. Located on Route 206 in Andover, New Jersey, they have everything you need for hunting, fishing, camping, gun exchanges, and more. Gerald, the owner, has been very good to us with his support for our channel, and we have no doubts that you'll have the same experience. Head on over to Andover Hunt and Fish today and let them know the Wing and Tail Boys sent you. When I head out to the woods, I have to know that I have the best performing equipment that I can afford, so that way I'm the only variable that I have to worry about. That's why I trust Fire Knock products for all my arrow and bow accessory needs. From arrow components to bow accessories like stabilizers and arrow rests, they have what you need. Dorge won't put anything on the market if it doesn't perform 50% better than what's already out there. So head on over to fireknock.com today to see what they're all about.
Nope.
Cool.
All right, moving on. Actually, fun fact real quick. I'm sure you know this, Kev, but I thought this was fascinating. So I listen a lot also to the Land and Legacy podcast. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of them, but they're two guys who own a company, Land and Legacy, and they're property managers. They also sell hunting land. They gotta have their hands in a couple different pots, but they really hone in on property management, food plotting, and all that good stuff. And one of the things they were saying is, and like you're saying, is you do need that diverse cover for turkey, but it's not just because it's like where they like to hang out. It's also because they need different type of habitat at different stages of the life cycle. Like an older turkey likes like the underbrush. They want those places to hide if they need to. But a young turkey, especially a female who's having a brood, they call them.
Yep.
They, in their first 2 or 3 days of life, their bodies physically cannot regulate body temperature. So they need like a clear forest ground. Otherwise, they end up getting dew all over their feathers and stuff, and they can't regulate their heat, and they end up freezing overnight. I thought that was fascinating.
That's a big reason why fresh burns on public ground are so freaking popular to turkey hunt. And if you can identify a fresh burn on some public ground, for example, because it's just more common on public ground, come across big tracts of burnt pines or something. And there's certainly going to be turkeys there. Like, I'll bet my next paycheck and the 2 after that, there's going to be turkeys on that piece of burnt ground. Now, everybody and their brother who turkey hunts or knows a thing or two about it is also going to want to hunt turkeys there. So keep that in mind when you go to scout it preseason and you find 7 gobblers on it and you think you're in the chips. Well, when you show up opening day, there might be 12 other trucks fixing to hunt those same 7 gobblers.
Right.
So
I gotcha.
Keep that in mind. But moving on from there, I'm just going to keep touching up on finding turkeys because I feel like that's one of the things that most people struggle a little bit with. It's just like, well, how do I freaking go find a turkey? Because it's not as cut and dried. Deer hunting is, kind of climb a spot in the woods and the deer come to you. You're going to kind of go to the turkeys. So we need to be able to find turkeys. And there's a couple ways you can do that. We've already touched on listening to them gobble in the morning from the trees. That's one of the best things about the spring, man. The turkeys gobble. If the deer made a big loud noise 75 times in a tree every morning when we were hunting them, it'd be a lot easier to find them,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't do that. But turkeys do.
They can't make it easy, huh?
Right. Roosting turkeys. Roosting turkeys is going to be the next thing we talk about. Roosting turkeys in the evening time specifically. Now, that's a way to set yourself up for success for a hunt, right? So now, let's say in the preseason, we identified this creek bottom that's near a field or near an open hardwood ridge or whatever, and we went and we listened to turkeys gobble in that creek bottom. Now it's the night before opening day, and we're riding around. We're going to try to roost a turkey. So you want to get to the position of where you want to listen from, where you think you're going to be near a roosted turkey, about 30 minutes before it starts getting dark, right? That turkey's going to want to fly up before sunset. They're going to want to fly up 20 to 30 minutes before it starts getting dark because they cannot see well in the dark at all, unlike a deer, right? So they want to get up in that tree. They're going to start working their way towards that roost site like an hour before dark, and then they're going to get close to it. They're going to hang out. Oftentimes, they'll gobble a couple times to corral their hens before they roost, and then they'll fly up. Again, if you're close enough, you can hear them fly up, and that's huge. Even if you just hear hens fly up, that's great. You just want to be near turkeys, right? Once that turkey gets in the tree, you want to give them 5-10 minutes, and you'll just get better at this over time of knowing like the times when turkeys are roosted after hearing them a lot. Give him 5-10 minutes, let him get comfortable up there on the limb, tuck his wings and stuff, and get all right in the tree. And then you can call to that turkey on the limb and make him gobble. Once you can do that, that turkey is likely, I'm not going to say it's 100% of the time because they will jump roost trees and they'll get bumped out of a tree by a predator or whatever, but likely going to be in that tree in the morning. I've gone in before and literally, not intentionally, but misroosted a turkey by a little bit, by 70 or 80 yards of where I thought I heard him roost versus where he did roost. And I've crawled to the base of the tree that a turkey was in and then sat there in the dark and the light came up and he gobbled and it about blew my spirit out of my butt. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's so loud right over top of your head. So my point is, it gives you a huge advantage because you can go get really, really close to that turkey before he hits the ground.
Okay.
If it's legal in your, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just say, so when you're scouting for turkeys early season or trying to just figure out where they are, we recommend finding them in the morning, getting out there in the morning, calling to them, figuring out where they are. But if you're in hunting mode, so you're in season, you're trying to figure out where you want to hunt the next morning, better off going out there the night before, figuring out where they are so you know where to start the next day.
Yeah, if I roost a turkey in a tree, like I sure enough roost the turkey, that's the turkey I'm hunting first thing in the morning. I've got one roosted. Why would I go try to find a different one that I don't know? I don't know where he's at. You know what I mean? I'm just guessing. Yeah. If I've got one roosted, that's the one I'm going to go hunt. The next thing I want to talk. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. Do you have do you when you're turkey hunting, like when we go deer hunting, we've talked about this. Depending on where I am, I have a certain caliber that I'm looking for, right? If it gets my blood going and it's within the caliber that I'm looking for, that deer is fair game. Do you have the same when you go turkey hunting? Like if you know a tree's roosted if you know a turkey's roosted in the tree in the morning, and then you get there, you call to him and stuff, and then he comes on, he's like, it's not as big as I wanted it to be. Like, is that something that goes through your head when you're turkey hunting also, or is that just more a deer thing?
No. If he's a mature turkey, I'm shooting him. Okay. And that's the beauty of it, man. That's the beauty of turkey hunting. One of the things that I absolutely love about it is that there's a lot less ego in turkey hunting because there's not this, this one only scored 145, but he's a non-typical and blah, blah, blah. No, dude, it's like, man, he's got a freaking beard on him and his fan's full. Shoot him. You know what I mean? Okay. Like, cool. A turkey reaches maturity at 2 years old. They get that full fan and they get a long beard. And then after that, we start calling them long beards. You know, young turkey, we call it Jake.
And that's what.
Any long beard, I'm shooting.
Yeah.
And if you talk to a biologist about it, I've got a buddy in Alabama. He's a great guy for you to reach out to if you ever want to have him on. He's a wildlife biologist down in Alabama. His name's Jared Knight. Fantastic guy. I actually met him turkey hunting public ground in Alabama. And he does some turkey studies and stuff. And if you talk to him or really any biologist that has any idea about turkeys, what they'll tell you is looking at a turkey based on their fan and their spurs and their beard and stuff, you can't age them based off of that. A lot of that stuff is purely genetics. You can't say, it's got an 11-inch beard, must be a 3-year-old because the 2-year-old usually has a 9-inch beard. Like, that may not be the case at all. So if you're like out hunting turkeys for age or whatever, like, well, good luck. You're just not going to be able to age them on the spur like that, you know?
So I got something that might make you chuckle a little bit, being like a seasoned turkey hunter. So when we first got the property, I was like dead set in management mode, thinking 5-10 years ahead of time, trying to, protect the deer wherever I can, whatever the case is, right? And in the first year, we knew we had turkey on the property. We knew it.
Mhm.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, we have a good stock to start with the turkey. I'm going to let them grow. I'm going to let them mature. They're going to get big.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
finally, I started talking to someone about it last year, our third year on the property. And they're like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, it's a Tom in 2 years, man. He's like, get out there and hunt. I'm like, oh, I had no freaking clue.
Yeah.
So I've been like sitting on
I'm gonna have me a Boone and Crockett gobbler.
Dude,
I'd wait
right.
a couple more years.
Exactly. You know, when I tell you I've been sitting on a gold mine, man, like I'm not trying to like, you know, toot the horn or anything like on our property, but when I tell you it's a beautiful flock, at least 20 turkey, at least, and at least a third of them are shootable toms. They're not, you know, they're not jakes. They got long beards. They're strutting all over the place. It's incredible. So that's why I've been like, now I'm like, okay, now I have to go hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about locating turkeys midday on the finding turkey subject.
Okay.
But before I jump into that, I want to brush on locator calls real quick, because that is kind of going to play into roosting turkeys and locating turkeys midday.
Okay.
So you kind of got to understand, like when I was talking about roosting turkeys and I say you call to the turkey and get them to gobble in the tree so you can roost them, you kind of have to have an idea of what kind of call to make them gobble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll touch on that. So locator calls. I'm a huge fan of locator calls. A turkey will do something called a shot gobble. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm so much a fan of it that my license plate on my truck is shot gobble. And you can use several different types of locator calls. You can locate turkeys with owl calls, crow calls, goose calls, hawk calls, coyote calls. You can use turkey calls to locate turkeys. So be careful with that, but you can do that too. One of my favorite ones is an owl call. I'll use an owl call 40 plus times a day in a day of turkey hunting. And they're really easy to learn. You can buy an owl hooter tube and just watch a couple YouTube videos for like a $30 tube, and then watch some YouTube videos and figure out how to run that thing pretty good. 90% of people, especially in the Southeast, just owl call with their mouth. It's really easy. I'm sure you've heard like a barred owl do the 8 count in the woods before, right?
That's pretty good.
So like that one right there will make a turkey rip a gobble quick. So that's an easy one, and you can do that on a tube and it sounds really good. And you can also just go stand there and just and they'll gobble at that. So you can do simple stuff like that. In the fall, the barred owls make this noise. It's called a screech. You may have heard it before while deer hunting. It's like a it's like that noise. That will rip some gobbles out of some turkeys, dude. They hate that noise. or love it. I don't know, but it makes them gobble. Anyway,
what is it about the predator? Because I've heard you talk about this before. I've heard other people talk about that before. Why is it that the turkeys respond to the predator? Because like thinking of fight or flight, you know, if if somebody breaks into my house and you know they're a predator, yeah, right. Like I'm not going to stop. I'm sitting in a corner and I'm hoping that they leave and I'm prepared if they're not. Exactly.
So like I think it's more like the robber comes in your house and you're screaming, "I dare you."
Yeah, right.
They're so jacked up. They're like, "Let's go!" Like, I
don't even care. I want all the smoke.
Let's settle this once and for all. I got an audience here. I'm ready to throw some spurs.
Yeah, my lady's watching. I'm not about to lose.
That's it.
Yeah. Maybe so, man. I'll be honest. I'm the wrong person to ask that question. That's a question for a biologist that knows better than I do. All I know is turkeys' testosterone levels are at an 11 out of 10 during the springtime, right? They are fired up. I've been hunting a turkey before. I can recall a specific hunting situation where I glassed a turkey in a field, knew that we leased the patch of woods that was behind this field. So I was like, I'm going to go get in those woods and call this turkey into the timber. And I was in the timber and I was creeping up. And in my head, I'm like, okay, there's the barn. He was strutting like 100 yards left of that barn. So he should be over here. But I don't want to go too far, you know? And I'm standing there thinking, do I call? I'm not sure. And in that moment, an 18-wheeler hit the highway that was about 400 yards past me. And when he slowed down for the curve, his jake brake, and that turkey said, and gobbled at the jake brake. So I think they're just so fired up that time of year that they'll gobble at just about any dang sound if they're in the right mood. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Now, a really easy one for beginners is a crow call. You can go get a Primo's crow call on Amazon for like $11. It's a little plastic thing with reeds in it and a little tube. You just bite on the end of it slightly and just huff air out from your diaphragm like you would a duck call, you know? And it's just, you know, it's just crow noises. And turkeys will gobble at that. That's a pretty easy one to do.
All right.
My favorite's the owl call, crow call. A lot of my buddies have a lot of luck with a goose call. I don't carry a goose call, but I've seen it work, and I've seen wild turkeys gobble at Canada geese when they fly over and honk. The coyote call is a good one. If you ever want to like get a master class on coyote calling at turkeys, get on YouTube and type in Shane Simpson hunting coyote calls. That guy is the man. Shane Simpson's got an awesome YouTube channel of him traveling the nation hunting turkeys, and he uses a turkey call and makes coyote sounds on it, and it is unreal how realistic it is, and he rips some gobbles out of turkeys and roosts a lot of turkeys like that.
That's cool. All right.
So all that said to say this, now that you've got a couple locator calls in your pocket, whether you physically have the calls or you're using your mouth, we can go roost a turkey, right? So we'll go get near that water. We'll wait till fly up time, which, like I said, is about that prime time. Let me put it to you this way. If you're a deer hunter, about the time that you expect to see deer, you know, when you're in the stand and you're like, oh, it's prime time. They're going to any second now. That's when a turkey's about to roost, right then. Okay? That's when they're flying up. So in that moment, you give it about 5 more minutes, and then you start your you start your owl calls, right? And then they'll gobble at it. Pow! Once they gobble in the tree, you've got that turkey roosted. Now you got to figure out how to set up on them. And that's a different conversation. But we'll move on to locating turkeys midday. We'll stick on the subject of finding turkeys.
Okay.
So now let's talk about locating turkeys midday. Let's say you didn't find any turkeys on the roost that morning in your hunt, or you did and it didn't work out or whatever. So now you're going to go try to locate a different turkey. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Maybe you've got a couple properties in the area that you lease. You struck out on property A, so you're going to jet over to property B. Do you just wander into the woods and sit against a tree and wait for a turkey to come strolling through? You can. I wouldn't, but that's a way to hunt, you know? So that goes back to your locator calls. So when you're doing a locator call into a property, if you have an idea of where turkeys like to hang out during the day because of your pre-season scouting and listening, then go get near that area and do a locator call, right? If you don't have any idea in mind, just get up high. Get up where you think your sound is going to travel the absolute furthest. It could be like a ridge spine where there's a logging road or whatever, you know, just an advantageous area where you can hear and pitch a sound a really long way. You want to be able to hear really well. So go get up there, walk, stop, listen, just listen for a minute. Sometimes they'll just gobble on their own in the middle of the day. You wait 5-10 minutes, you don't hear anything gobble, rip out that 8-count owl hoot. That doesn't work. Wait 5 minutes, try the crow call. That doesn't work. Move 100 yards. Start your sequence over. And again, you can also use turkey calling to locate a turkey. You can cut aggressively. You can yelp. If you've got a box call or a slate call, something you can get loud on, you can just start like just cutting on it really loud, and that'll travel way through the woods. And you can locate a turkey with that. Now, I caution that if you're going to use a turkey call to locate turkeys, to be careful with it for a couple of reasons. Number one, once you make the turkey call, you've shown your hand to the turkey. You said, there's a turkey over here, right? When I make that owl call, he gobbles. He's not going to move or change his daily routine because of my owl call. He's just going to pow, rip off a gobble and then go back to what he was doing. Now, if you make a turkey call and he gobbles, he might be on his way. So let's say you've got your gun leaning against a tree behind you. You got your vest halfway off. You're standing there. You got a PB&J in your hand. And then you yelp on a box call and he gobbles and he's 90 yards away. You need to be sitting down with a shotgun in your lap because he might be here in 30 seconds. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to use a turkey call, already be in a spot where you think you can kill him. Already have shooting lanes picked out. Already be in a spot where you can see a long ways, where you've got good cover and all those things, right? And then do your turkey call. You don't have to be as careful with your other locator calls. So with the turkey call, you absolutely do. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes complete sense. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing like with a deer. You know what I mean? When you hit a deer call, you better be ready to take that shot.
Right.
Because it's been
don't end up like me in New York.
Yeah. Jeez. Dude, you know what though? I had the same thing happen to me when I was hunting up in New Hampshire, which is actually the one place where I probably had the most experience with turkey. I had this one patch of woods. It was like a finger that came out from private property. And then, you know, you could wrap around the bottom of it or you could walk over the top. And they just always were anywhere from the point or around the backside. And anyway, I was hunting there the one time. I was hunting at the bottom of the horseback, whatever you want to call it. And I'm hitting the rattle. I'm hitting the rattle. I'm hitting the rattle. Next thing I know, I turn around to go check behind me as I'm rattling, and it's like this 8-pointer just staring at me.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
100%.
that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my buddy
You know?
Kale. He was he's a pretty new turkey hunter, or was at the time anyway. And this is a couple years ago. And he was asking me like, "Hey man, I got this property. I know there's turkeys on it. They don't really gobble a whole lot. Where do you think I should start?" And we kind of looked at the map, and I was like, "Well, go to this area, this specific area on the map, and go sit down and just." He's got one of those cluck boxes. If you're not familiar, it's just a little wooden box, and it's got a
Mhm.
slide through pole, and it's
Yep.
got a piece of reed on the top of it. And when you cluck on that pole, it goes cluck, 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 and it just clucks, right?
Yep. I've seen those.
I was
Yeah.
like, if you, and that's another tip, man. If you can't call too good, just call conservatively, right? So he can't call too good, so he's calling conservatively with his cluck box. I said, just go sit in that creek bottom and hit that cluck box, scratch the leaves, and just hang out. And he was doing that every 30 minutes or so, and then he'd play on his phone and sit there. And then a gobbler just popped up in his lap at one point. You know, he had one just walk up on him and completely bust him. So they will come in quietly without gobbling on high pressure areas like his hunt club is in this specific example.
Okay. So now since we're on the topic of calling, 2 questions. First is, I think I have to double check for turkey specifically, but I was so shocked to find that New York State allows you to use electronic calls for deer hunting. I've never seen that before. What have you ever used an electronic call for turkey hunting? Would you recommend it? Would you not be like? What do you think about those? If we're even allowed to, like I said, I'd have to check the regulations. But
I have zero experience with that. I've never tried it. I don't have any interest in trying it. I love calling it turkeys with a mouth call. I love calling it turkeys with a slate call in my mouth. I don't have any interest in doing that.
Okay.
That would just rip the fun out of it for me.
Yep. Now, if you're going to call a turkey in, obviously you're expecting him to strut in or whatnot. What will they strut through cover? Or like, do you need to? Okay, like if I expect the turkey to come in, like there needs to be either a logging road or a trail that they could walk. Like, will they strut through like cover? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen a turkey walk through a cutover strutting. Man, when they're fired up and they're in the mood, they'll come through just about anything to get to you. Now, sometimes you can't get them to cross a dang logging road. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they're stubborn. They've gotten hung up because of creeks, because of a bend or whatever, just silly stuff. But sometimes they will climb through anything to get to you.
Okay.
It just kind of depends on the mood that they're in. But yeah, so if you want to kind of segue into like situational types of hunting, I guess we can go from here to there. Is that okay?
Yeah, we could. I mean, listen, we're going off your lead with this. Like I said, I wouldn't even know the next progression of where to go with that. I do want to be cautious of your time. I know you said that you're kind of on a time limit tonight, so whatever you think we can get in your time, we'll go. We'll follow your lead. Or if you think the next one's going to take us over too far, we could cap it here and decide.
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm having fun. Let's keep her going.
Cool, let's do it. He said we're talking turkeys, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's go.
So several ways to approach turkey hunting, and there's probably about a dozen, but we're just going to cover 2 of them to keep it simple for tonight. Run and gun and sit and wait. Those are the 2 we're going to talk about, right? So going back to when we were talking about locating turkeys, we talked about roosting turkeys, we talked about finding turkeys midday, and we talked about glassing turkeys, right? When you glass a turkey, let's say you identify a strut zone, right? And what a strut zone is going to be is an area where that turkey wants to strut. Pretty plain and simple, right? So a lot of times it's a field. Sometimes it's a hardwood ridge. Sometimes it's a logging road. Sometimes it's a power line. I've seen all these examples. But with that being said, that turkey, that's an area that the turkey goes where he wants to be seen by hens. And he'll go there and he'll strut and he'll display and do all these types of things. Gobble, court his hens, breed, etc. If you can identify one of these strut zones, that is a place where you want to spend some time and attention, right? So let's say you're going to go with the sit and wait tactic. You're a bit of a newer turkey hunter. You're not really comfortable running and gunning and calling and making all these moves and stuff because you don't really know how to move through the turkey woods yet. Then the best thing you can do is identify a strut zone, especially if it's a field. That's the easiest one. But any of the options I just listed will work just fine. and then go in there and sit and wait. So go literally as simple as you see a turkey strut, go sit within gun range of where that turkey was strutting, camoed up head to toe, get in there with the cover of darkness and just sit there and wait. And if he gobbles and he's 500 yards away and you decide you want to go run and gun him, that's fine. But if not, I bet he's going to come to that strut zone eventually. So you can just sit there and just wait. Now, there's also decoys, right? You can use decoys. I don't personally hunt with decoys anymore. I've killed several turkeys over decoys in the past. I prefer hunting them without decoys now. But for a newer turkey hunter, especially on private ground, it's something I would definitely recommend trying in the early stages of your turkey hunting career. I wouldn't recommend it on public ground because there's a bit of a safety issue there, right? You don't really want to sit on the ground in full camo head to toe with your back against a tree with a turkey decoy 30 yards in front of you. I don't think I have to explain why that's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But on private ground, that's absolutely an effective technique, is using turkey decoys. There's a bunch of different types. You've got hens, you've got breeding hens, lookout hens, lay down hens, all different types of hens. You got Jake decoys, you got strutter decoys. My favorite is a quarter or a half strut Jake, either one. Just a little wimpy looking thing with a tiny little beard that's like half kind of trying to strut. Now, if you can identify a turkey strut zone, like I mentioned before, and then take that half strut Jake and then stick it out in the field and stick a hen decoy next to it, go set up with gun range of that thing, yelp on a mouth call a couple times, and then just sit there, or any kind of call for that matter, and then just sit there, you're in the chips, man. You're in the chips in that situation. So that's an easy sit and wait tactic. Another sit and wait tactic would be, let's say your situation.
Before you go any further, we're talking about decoys. The positioning and the scenario that you build with the decoy, how important do you think that would be? So like an example is, you said you had the half strut Jake. Maybe having it positioned near, closely, or behind a laying down hen would be something that would maybe represent a hen almost maybe allowing him to breed soon or something like that. You think that would fire up the tom even more than maybe like two hen decoys standing kind of looking like they're feeding and then a strutting Jake 10 yards behind them?
So say two things. Number one, I've killed a turkey like that before. It was kind of funny. My buddy had this hen decoy back in the day, and it had legs that you had to stick on the bottom of it, right? And then it would stand up. And that was like, they kind of acted as the stake. They would stake into the ground, those legs would. And I guess he dropped them out of his vest or something when we were walking through the field in the dark. And we got up there, and he just had the body of the hen. And he's like, dude, what the heck do I do with this? And I was like, man, just lay that thing on the ground and put the Jake right behind it like he's mounting her. And he was like, all right. And I was like, he's like, you think that'll work? I'm like, heck, I don't know, but we'll find out in a minute. Because we had 3 turkeys roosted right up away from us. And we set it up. It looked so goofy. It was a Jake like this. Like he was like mounting the hen. The hen was half falling over on uneven terrain. And them gobblers came in fired up to that, boy. They came right in.
That's awesome.
So the other thing I want to touch on off of what Angelo said, if you like, let's say you had just a hen decoy or 2 hen decoys and you didn't have the male decoy, it can work. It's not really something I recommend. And the reason for that is when you're using a decoy, the idea is for the decoy to be seen by the targeted species, the turkey, the gobbler, right? So if you stick that hen out there and then you make some hen calls and a turkey comes within seeing distance of that hen, and let's say he's 190 yards away and he can see the hen, he might just stand there and strut and drum at that hen. And he's like, oh, she'll come over here. You know what I mean? And he'll just hang up and you've just screwed yourself. Whereas if you didn't have the decoy, you could almost be more effective, But then you add in that male decoy with the female decoy, and now you've got a completely different scenario. Now he's got a reason to come over there and whip some tail and take what's his,
Yeah. Is that also one of those things where, like, let's say you only had a tom decoy, you only had a hen decoy. Would you not want to make, obviously, the sound of the turkey that you don't have? So, like, if you only have hens, would you want to avoid sounding like a tom or vice versa?
No, I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Okay.
When I call to a turkey, obviously 95% of the time I'm making hen calls, right? I'm making hen calls on my mouth call. I primarily use a mouth call. I'll use a slate call a little bit, mostly just for locating. But really, I use a mouth call 99% of the time. And I'm making hen noises. But a lot of times if I'm yap, 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 pick it, yap, 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 and a turkey's eating it up, but then he gets hung up for a while, I'll throw in some Jake yelps with that. I'll yap, 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 and throw some Jake yelps in the mix. And sometimes that'll fire him right back up. So I don't really think, I don't know. Like I said, I try not to overthink it. I think the turkeys, when they're in that mindset of like strutting and gobbling and doing their thing in the spring, they're not like I said earlier with the off-season locator call stuff. They're not really overanalyzing it too much. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? They're
I
just
got you.
coming in because they're fired up.
Okay. And would the run and gun style of locating and hunting turkey be considered the same as stalking, like stalking a turkey?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably like number 3. That's probably its own thing. Like I
Okay.
had a turkey I killed last year. I never made a single call. I never even set up. I just crawled up and shot the turkey.
Okay.
Saw him 300 yards away, made a big loop, crawled up a hill and shot him.
Yeah.
And that's certainly another tactic. Some people aren't a fan of it, but it's certainly
Yeah.
effective if you're sneaky enough.
Yeah. The only reason I ask is because New Jersey law specifically says you cannot stalk turkey. You have to
Oh,
pretty
wow.
much be set
Interesting.
up and hunt them. And I don't know if there's any truth to this. I just assumed as a kid, like you were saying, turkey have phenomenal eyesight. They can
Oh,
see,
yeah.
very long distance, which is why you don't have to wear orange. At least is
Mhm.
what I assume. You don't have to wear orange when you turkey hunt. Otherwise, you'd never shoot a turkey.
Yeah,
So that's
pretty
why I'm
accurate.
assuming in Jersey they don't allow you stalk because you're saying people might be wearing decoys or using decoys. People don't have orange on. So how do
Mhm.
you know where people are? I guess it's a safety thing. So,
Probably.
for those of you listening from the Northeast, we need to look into New York and Pennsylvania specifically, but I know for sure it is illegal to stalk turkey in New Jersey. And I don't know if a game warden would differentiate like, oh, I heard the turkey, so now I'm just going towards it versus I'm stalking a turkey. I don't know.
Mhm. That's a
So,
good question. I don't know the answer to.
okay,
But
yeah,
that's a good question, something to look into for sure.
yeah,
Um, so that's like I said, that's sit and wait tactic number 1. Set up in a field with a decoy. That's an awesome one. Let's say your situation looks a little different. Let's say it's a big, large tract of public land, primarily timbered, and you don't have like any obvious open areas where you can glass turkeys and see strut zones and stuff like that. In that situation, I would go get near water and then walk. Let's say you walk a creek bottom. Walk for 200 yards, look for some turkey sign. We're looking for turkey scratching. We're looking for feathers. We're looking for droppings. We're looking for tracks. Um, Make it 200 yards, don't see any. Go up to the top of the ridge. Walk that for 200 yards. Don't see any, shoot back down to the creek. Rinse and repeat until you find that turkey sign. And you want to find like where it looks like somebody took a tiller through the woods, like it's going to be scratched to hell, right?
hmm
That's your sit and wait spot in your timbered situation. You don't have a big field. You decided that that's how you want to hunt. You want to sit and wait. That's where you're going to want to sit and wait.
okay.
Is right there. Where anywhere you have dense turkey sign.
Yeah. Now let's say you have the opposite. And I'll be honest, this is a little bit more of a selfish question because it is how our property lays out. Our property is pretty much woods, hardwoods, and then logging roads or tracks
Yeah,
going through it.
yeah.
And essentially, any one of those trails or roads that you drive, they're scratched from end to end. There are
Hmm.
scratches everywhere. I got to send you some videos. I have videos of from the game cameras of turkeys walking up, scratching, then backing up, kind of picking through the dirt. It was the coolest thing to
Hmm.
see because I've
Yeah.
never seen that before.
Hmm.
But how would you tackle it where the scenario you just gave is where you walk it, you don't find it, move, you don't find it, move, you don't find it, versus everywhere you go, you're seeing turkey sign.
Man, that sounds like you're in a beautiful place to hunt turkeys. And that's one of the beautiful things about turkey hunting, man, is, as deer hunters, we have to constantly, when we find a large density of sign, we have to think to ourselves, is this night sign or is this day sign? Turkeys don't make night sign. Turkeys sleep at
Oh,
night. So
all
all
right.
the sign you find is day sign, which is awesome, right? So if you find that logging road that's scratched to hell, I would just set up and hang out. If you're going with the sit and wait tactic,
All
that would
right.
be a great place to hang out and do a couple soft clucks and purrs and some low yelps on a mouth call. Take your hand and scratch in the leaves like a hen and hang out for a couple hours. That would be a great spot to do it, man. And turkeys love strutting those logging roads. When you just described that property to me, the massive hardwoods and the 2 tracks going through it,
Hmm.
that got me excited because that's some of my
Okay.
favorite stuff to turkey hunt right there, man. That type of habitat is so there's nothing cooler than a turkey gobbling in the hardwoods coming up a 2 track, man. It is so
All
cool
right.
to me.
And it's so cool to hear you like talking about them because I'm picturing the places where I've seen the turkey before. And I'll be honest, on our property, I haven't seen them in person except when my dog ended up tracking one and sent one flying.
Okay.
But outside of that, on our property, I haven't seen them while hunting, but we have a lot of data of them on cameras. and we basically exclusively see them on the cameras that are on food plots. And they're just sitting there either strutting or walking through or feeding in the fields and stuff like that. Now, if our property is really long road frontage, so think of like a rectangle with like a curved corner. That entire corner covers one half of the long side of our property, and it's all road frontage. And then once you get into the woods, you have to walk through our property to get to the back ends of the property or the far ends of the property or whatever.
Okay.
If we're planning on trying to turkey hunt our property throughout the turkey season, would it be safe to say then you want to start on the outside of the property in the beginning of the season and kind of work your way towards the middle as the season goes on from a pressure standpoint?
Hold on, give me 1 second. Sorry, my mic's doing something crazy.
Yeah, no problem. You getting feedback or something?
I was getting it too.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
I was getting that
mic
feedback
just started
too.
going erratic in my ears.
Yeah,
I don't know what that
sometimes
was.
it randomly happens.
Yeah. Anyway, your question was, should you hunt the fringes of the property first and then slowly move in? It's a hard question to answer. I mean, really, I just hunt where the turkeys are at. That's
Okay.
the beautiful thing about turkey hunting. With deer hunting, they're not quite nearly as vocal, so you don't necessarily know where the deer is at unless they're laying down a bunch of sign. But with turkeys, you know exactly where the turkeys are. Now, I wouldn't dive bomb into the center of the property on opening day if you don't know there's a turkey there. That would be pointless, right?
Okay.
So, like, maybe stay in the fringes of the property for listening purposes, but then you hear a turkey, pow, like a mile away, gobble in the center of the property.
Sorry.
Come on, guy. I'm trying to work here.
My phone was off in the other room for a couple minutes, and I came back in, and there was notification from a realtor I have. Anyway, I clicked on it, and then it was got some.
No worries.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, so like you're in the fringes of the property, you're listening, and that turkey gobbles and he's way in the center of the property. Then I'm going to the center of the property. I don't care if it's the day after opening day. I'm going where the turkey is. You know what I mean?
I got you.
So
okay, and when you're walking through the woods, like when you're deer hunting, and I'm relating this a lot to deer hunting because that's like my base of knowledge to kind of like build off of.
Absolutely.
So like when you're walking through the woods, you always want to be silent. I don't know about you, but when I'm in, unless I'm planting a food plot, any other time of the year, in season, out of season, it doesn't matter. I'm going in there with my camo. I'm going in there with my scent control stuff on, and I'm trying to make as little noise as possible. It doesn't matter. It could be June. I don't care. Is that something you need to worry about with turkey? Are they I know you said they're sensitive to hunting pressure, but are they sensitive to, noise and stuff like that? Like, do you have to sneak around the woods the same way you would for deer for long-term pressure?
Are we talking about in a hunting situation or just we're just on our property doing some tree work or something situation?
Let's keep it real simple, and let's say this is starting when we want to start scouting for turkey, like ready to like. So you said like March 20th. So starting March 20th to the end of the season.
I want to sound like a turkey when I move through the property. Okay. It's really all about audio and vocal with turkeys. They don't have any and they don't really smell too good. You know what I mean? They're not like picking up your ground scent, stuff like that. So you don't really have to worry about that necessarily. Like you're not going to go into an area when they're not there and disturb it and then cause them to not want to return necessarily. But if you walked up on a flock of turkeys and bumped them, that's certainly going to have an impact on them. That's going to affect them negatively for hunting situations. So anytime I move through the woods when I'm scouting for turkeys, I want to sound like a turkey. Lucky for us, turkeys have 2 legs and so do we. So our cadence when we walk through the woods is pretty similar. The one simple thing you can do, man, is walk through the woods and every once in a while, maybe every 40, 50 yards, stop and just take your foot and just kick some leaves to the side, make like a same sound a hen makes when she walks through the woods and scratches at the leaves, pecking, right? Oftentimes, I'll throw a mouth call in, and I even do this during deer season to access. Man, my mic keeps doing this funny noise.
On the bright side, we're not picking that up on my end.
There it goes. Oh, sorry about that. I'll even do this during the deer season. I'll throw a mouth call in my mouth and walk through the hardwoods and just every 50, 60 yards and then scratch the leaves. And man, I'll do that during turkey season when I'm scouting. I'll be scouting midday, and I was going to touch on that in a minute when we talk about run and gun. I'll be scouting midday and I'll do that. And oftentimes I'll be doing that and a turkey 150 yards away will just fire off a gobble. And now I'm in the game. You know what I mean? So
Right.
just sound like a turkey when you move through the woods.
All right, I got you. And you got anything on any questions on turkey calling, walking through the woods? Then what was it? The running gun? I think we
I
started
mean,
with, right?
I do a lot of that type of stuff throughout all seasons. I mean, I'm really big on moving through the woods. One of my secrets is kind of basically doing that, sounding like I'm part of the woods, making sure that I'm, if I'm trying to walk a little bit faster, then I'm trying to sound maybe more like a deer. Or if I'm walking really slow, like you did, like you said, you scratch a couple of leaves like that, try to sound like a turkey. Sometimes I'm making calls randomly about different animal calls to try to cover up my noise, just to kind of blend in with what's going on so that nothing's alerted to my presence. I mean, because at this
Right.
point, we're hunting mostly public land, and a lot of that is pretty pressured. And a lot of scientific studies will show, even in deer woods, when you're hunting deer in the preseason, you start walking around, as soon as they know they're getting hunted, it starts to change their behavior. I mean, that
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean they completely disappear, but they start to definitely start knowing how to move. They know how to move through the woods differently when there's pressure. So
Right.
that's something that I'm doing as well. When I turkey hunt, I do the same thing. I have more of a run and gun style of hunting in general, no matter what I'm hunting. So I have to kind of always be thinking about those types of things. So I can relate to that.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll move on to talking about more of a run and gun style hunt, which is how I hunt. I don't do a whole lot of sitting and waiting. It drives me crazy. You know what I mean? I'm impatient as it is, but so running a gun is how I like to hunt, man. And sometimes I even like to say, like, I don't know if either of you guys bass fish, but if you do, I'm sure you've heard somebody say before, I'd rather catch 5 bass on the top water than 20 on the bottom. You know what I mean? And for me, it's like I'd rather kill 1 turkey in 3 days of hunting, running the gunning, than kill 2 turkeys in 3 days of hunting, sitting and waiting both days. Honestly, I'm just out there to have a good time, and running and
Sure.
gunning's where I'm having a good time. So, several ways to go about it. Obviously, starting first thing in the morning, we're going to go try to get near where we think a turkey is roosted. If we've roosted a turkey, all the better. But if we haven't, we're going to go get somewhere where we think near. Let's say we get 200 yards from a creek bottom, and we're standing there and we're listening, and a turkey gobbles, and he's in there. Now we set up. So we're going to set up. I'd like to get at least 100 yards from the turkey. If you can get closer to that confidently without busting him, do it. But if not, 100 yards is plenty fine. Right, so we're going to set up 100 yards from that turkey while he's gobbling on the limb. Now you have to make the decision whether or not you're going to call to that turkey while he's on the limb. And that's entirely up to you. You don't have to kill the turkey. It certainly helps because you can oftentimes coerce them into starting their morning in your direction if you call to them on the limb. Now your calling has to be pretty dang good while they're on the limb. They can hear really good while they're up there, and they've got a lot of options of what direction they can go. So you got to be pretty convincing if you're going to talk to a turkey on the limb. And it has to sound like tree talk. And what I mean by that is a hen, when they're in the tree, sounds a lot differently than a hen at 9 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the day. That hen is wide awake. She's done stretched her legs. She's had a couple meals. She's fired up, ready to go. A hen first thing in the morning, just like you or I, we don't wake up in the morning and start shouting. You know what I mean? We wake up and we're groggy and we're like, hey man, can I get some coffee? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these hens are the same way, man. They get up and it starts, it's yap, 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 yap. And so you got to learn that soft, low tree talk, the little, I like to call them bubble clucks and tree yelps and easy little clucks and yelps. So you start with just little soft notes at the turkey. Make sure you're pitching it at the turkey, right? Now, if he's up there gobbling on the limb, and you'll hear him changing directions as they gobble, they'll be doing this. They'll be turning on the limb gobbling because they're locating hens. If you hit that yap, 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 and he turns towards you, pow, and rips a gobble, that's an awesome sign. You can probably just shut up right there. And if he continues to stare at you and gobble, that's a really good sign. He's about to fly down in your lap, So you give him that, and then you wait. Sometimes they'll completely ignore you and just keep going about gobbling on the limb, gobbling on the limb. Then you should probably just shut up and then just wait. All right, so I'll give you 2 situations. 1, the turkey flies down, and he comes straight to you, and you shoot him in the face. Awesome. that hunt's over.
That's
Situ-
yeah.
Situation 2. He flies the complete opposite direction. He didn't answer any of your calling, and now he gobbles again, and he's 350 yards away. What's your next step? Do you sit there and wait? I'm not doing that. Could it work? Maybe. He might return to that roost site at some point during the day to revisit and see if there's some more hens that have poked back over. But I'm not doing that. Because if I'm not going to kill that turkey, I'm going to go find a different one. But I'm not giving up on this turkey yet. He just hit the ground, and I just heard him gobble 350 yards away. So I'm still going to hunt him. And I know which direction he went, because he gobbled here, and then he gobbled at point B, right? So I know he traveled north, for example. So now I'm going to cut what I like to call cutting a loop. I'm going to go, in that situation, it would be west 300-400 yards, and then north 300-400 yards, and then east 300-400 yards, right? I'm going to try to get, again, 100 yards from the turkey, but I'm going to get in front of the direction that he went. And if you feel like your access in getting there is taking too long, or like, shoot, did I make too much noise and did I bump him? Stop, hang out for 5 minutes, and make one of those locator calls. You make that locator call, and he's like still 300 yards up there. Okay, sweet, I'm on track. Now I know where he is. And then you just make that loop until you're 100 yards in front of the direction that he was last traveling. And then start your turkey calling sequence again. So I'll use my locator calls, owl calls, crow calls, hawk calls, all that good stuff on the way there. And then once I get set up, I got good cover, my gun's on my knee, my face mask is up, I'm ready to go. Now I'll pop the mouth call in and start turkey calling again. And I want to get him to answer me once, okay? So I'll just do like a soft yelping sequence or maybe just a couple cuts. And he'll answer me, and I'll pour into him one time. I'll get aggressive on the call and stuff like that, and get him just pow, 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 just ripping it up, and then I'll shut it down. No more calling. And if he keeps gobbling, you've probably got him. And it's when we already talked about this, but when he stops gobbling, that is when you need to be on your P's, because he's probably on his way.
Okay. I got you. So when it's interesting that you said, he wasn't interested in me. He flew the other way around. Now I'm gonna go get him, because I would think, okay, he wasn't interested in my calling. Now, whether that was I wasn't making the right sound, I wasn't, he wasn't interested in the pitch I was doing, whatever the case is. I would say, okay, he's not interested. I'll go find a bird that is. Is that just like a human thought I'm having? Like, is there any basis to that at all?
No, that's a good thought. And that goes into something I like to call taking a turkey's temperature. You hear a lot of people talk about that. Sometimes turkeys just ain't in the mood and ain't going to work that day, right? My buddy Adam, probably best turkey hunter I know, he always says, that turkey just don't want to die today. I'm going to come back when he wants to die,
Right.
And when that turkey doesn't want to die, that turkey doesn't want to die. But if you already know which direction the turkey's going and he's gobbling, a lot of times you don't even have to call. You just have to get in front of where he's going and get there. Right? So that goes back to like what we talked about with preseason scouting. Let's say you listen to turkeys in that creek bottom, and then they flew down, and then they went to a specific 2-track. If you already know they're doing that, you can just go get to that 2-track, and they're going to come to you. You see what I'm saying? So because I already know there's a turkey here, I'm not going to leave a turkey to find a turkey, right? So this turkey's here right now, and he's gobbling. Even though he didn't come to me straight off the limb, which 80% of the time they're not going to, because he probably had another hen to court. That's probably why he didn't come to me. Probably already had a hen in mind that he wanted to go breed. So then he's going to fly down, he's going to breed that hen, but then once he's done with that, he's going to want to breed again. And then sometimes you just got to lay up there with them. You just got to hang out in that area that they like to favor. And you just sit and wait, sometimes for an hour or more, and it's complete silence. And around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, he'll just let off a gobble and be 150 yards away. And you're like, oh, we're back in the game. Like he's ready to play again.
I got you. Now, I don't know, down in Virginia, is there like a time limit? Like you have to be out of the turkey woods at this time? Mm-hmm. Or are you allowed to hunt them from sunrise to sunset?
Noon. Our cutoff is noon for the first 3 quarters of the season. And for the last couple of weeks, we're allowed to hunt the entire day.
Okay. So Ange, correct me if I'm wrong here, but for as long as I've known turkey hunting, I've thought that New Jersey was always out of the woods by noon. Someone just told me recently, similar to you down in Virginia, where it's, the last, because Jersey splits their turkey season into 4, quote, seasons. You could either hunt the first Monday through Friday, the second Monday through Friday, third or fourth, or you can get 4 Saturdays. So you can't. It's not like you buy one license and you can just hunt the whole entire turkey season. So, is there a reason? I ask this to find out if there's a reason why you have to be out of the woods by noon. Is that to protect the turkey? Is that to protect the hunters? Like, what's the thought process behind not allowing you to
There
hunt
may or
past
may
noon?
not even be a law that says you can't roost turkeys too. I think that's part of it. I think that like Kevin said earlier, they're trying to give them a chance to breed. They know that if they don't come to you directly in the morning, they probably have moved off, and now they should probably be left alone to breed. It's all about giving them the opportunity to breed. And then I think that they don't want anyone having an unfair advantage of.
Oh, what, you muted yourself. I don't even know what you said. Last I heard was unfair advantage of.
So me and Kevin, I think, are both getting that feedback again.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want anyone having an unfair advantage of locating exactly where the turkeys are and then having an unfair advantage of in the morning coming in and being able to just pinpoint them and just, being taunted or maybe they have the idea in their mind of shooting them out of the tree or something like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They don't want people knowing.
No,
I think he's
100%
100% right. I think it all just comes down to giving them an opportunity to breed, and that's always been the reason I've been given for the cutoff, the noon cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, man. I kind of enjoy the noon cutoff, and the reason I say that is because I'm a turkey hunting fanatic, and if there was no noon cutoff, I would turkey hunt every day of the entire turkey season from sunup to sundown, walking 10 miles a day, and I would be 110 pounds and soaking wet and exhausted and broken by the end of the spring. So it kind of gives me a break.
I don't know about you, man, but after this fucking cold front that's come through here, I am so excited to go sit in the woods in the spring.
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I keep, while we're recording, I keep a beer in the window. So when I finish the one, I just pop the window open and grab the cold beer, and it ends up being colder in the window than it is from the fridge, man.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. It seems like this would be a logical place to kind of like clip this conversation and part one. But I don't want to cut you off if there's anything else specific that you were really looking to get to tonight in this portion of the conversation. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Sorry.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on? That's all.
No, I think that's a good, pretty easy summary of intro to tactics and locating and calling turkeys. I mean, obviously we could do a whole series of episodes on calling at turkeys and situational hunting tactics and stuff like that, but I think that's a pretty good basic turkey hunting 101 of a couple examples of how to locate and hunt turkeys.
Yeah, and Angelo and I have been talking a lot over time. One of the things that we really want to get into on our Wing and Tail Outdoors network or whatever is we really want to give our listeners series. I feel like sometimes when you try to squeeze everything into 1 or 2 episodes, sometimes you either don't touch on something as in depth as you would like, or you just miss something or whatever the case may be. Would you be interested in continuing this on like maybe a multi-part turkey series where we just talk until we're done talking for the day and then we just pick up on the next episode? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
Cool. So then listeners, you guys, Kevin's willing to come on back. So as you're listening to this, if any questions come to mind, maybe you're a new turkey hunter or maybe you're a seasoned turkey hunter and you have maybe some input or some questions, leave them down below. We would love to start the episode with a question that you have or, a listener comment. Before I end the episode today, I have 2 questions for you, which are more Kevin type questions. Number 1, in your opinion, for a brand new hunter who's never done either before, what's easier to get started in, turkey or deer hunting?
Deer hunting.
Really?
100%.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting turkey. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Deer hunting way easier.
Okay.
Plus, we don't need any more turkey hunters. Don't go turkey hunting. This sucks. Stay out of the woods.
Okay. Yo, it's terrible. You're not going to have fun. It's hot. It's sweaty. It sucks. My next question. Yeah. What is your turkey gun look like? Because I know you said we're going to get into like gear at some point.
Yeah.
But I figure at the end of each episode, if we touch on one new thing about Kevin, it would be pretty cool. So what gun do you shoot? What choke do you shoot? What rounds do you bring in the woods with you?
So it's a Rete Gordian turkey. It's a 20 gauge. It's a compact 20 gauge. It's dipped in bottomland because bottomland's awesome. And it's
Okay.
got I can't remember the brand, Summit, some toy. That sounds right, something like that. It's a red dot. It's got a red
Okay.
dot on it.
Mhm.
I use an Indian Creek extra full choke tube, and I shoot TSS number 9s.
Okay. Extra full choke. Fantastic.
Mhm.
And now, as I'm saying this, I just remembered. So I'll probably be bringing my Benelli out in the woods, which I'm very excited
Okay.
for. But I can't find my damn choke wrench, like because it comes with like a special wrench
Use a
to
quarter.
change the chokes out. Oh, dude, you can this gun, bro. I wish I would have known this when I bought it because I might not have bought it. A fucking barrel, a brand new barrel, costs more than 2 rifles.
Sheesh.
Dude, I don't know. Are you familiar with the Super Black Eagle, the Benelli Super Black
I am.
Eagle? Yeah, I
Mhm.
got one in Lefty when I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods. So thankfully, I got it, on a like an employee discount or whatever. I got a really great deal.
Yeah.
And at one point, I went to get a rifled barrel for it because I was like, screw it, I'll use it to shotgun hunt. Dude, when I shit you not, a rifled barrel alone with no bells and whistles, $650.
Sheesh.
Yeah, and that was 6 or 7 years ago when I looked into it. So I don't even know what it would cost me now. At that point, I'd rather just go buy a turkey shotgun and call it a day.
Yeah.
All my
so-
guns are hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Except for
So-
the new rifle that I just bought for the upstate New York hunts, and that you can consider a hand-me-down also because that was produced in like the 60s.
Yeah.
So
Hey, sometimes they're made better there. But all right, Kev, we want to thank you for joining us. This was a great conversation. I definitely learned a lot because, like I said, I came in here knowing zero about turkey hunting. So if you could give the listeners, you've been on here before, but just remind them where they could find you and what your network is called.
Oh man, if y'all haven't heard enough of me rambling on for the last hour and a half or however long we've been on here, then you want to hear me ramble on some more, then you can go listen over at the Mid-Atlantic Outdoorsman. I'm on podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff. I'm on the same network as Chris and Ange. I'm on the Sportsman's Empire Network, and I've got some stuff on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and again, it's Mid-Atlantic Outdoorsman.
Awesome, man. Well, we're glad to have you. Thanks for joining us. You guys know the spiel. Drive on down there. Leave a comment. Leave a nice 5-star review. We love it. Helps us. Helps you. And we'll get back with you guys again next week. And until then, remember, success is just a commitment away. Have a
Peace.
good one, guys.